YouTube. So my pal's started playing the bass and he's got his first gig coming up. So giving him some advice, stuff you don't normally get. When you're rehearsing, and you're going to be rehearsing, over rehearse if you can. Your gig is playing the bass. I was just explaining, like, there is a very specific place to have the bass depending on how you want to look. I know it sounds a bit silly and pointless, but you got to look cool. This is where I like having the bass, and it's amazing how just by doing that, you look like a tit. Just by doing that, you also look like a tit. So, or depending on what you think, but just having it, it can make all the difference, just being an inch up and down. Playing wise, it doesn't really make any difference. I mean, it's harder to play the Duff McKagan style, I suppose, sort of, but not really. Or the Mark King, you know, Mark King, Duff McKagan, or even Robert Trujillo from Trello, I don't know how you say his second name, who's Metallica, Ozzy Osbourne, who plays with the bass about that far off the ground. Looking cool. Also, outfits, what you're going to wear on stage, don't look like this. No, I don't mean, I didn't really like to look like a pure rock star and like that, but I remember doing a gig before and it was like just wearing trainers, and I'd forgotten about my GoPro, but I turned it on and it was kind of, I basically ended up filming our feet. And just, you can't wear neon running shoes. I mean, I suppose sort of, depending on what sort of band, you could maybe get away with, you know, basketball boots or something, but modern running shoes, just never, no. Anything comfy. Converse All Stars, they're always cool. Something like that, or shoes, and you know, I suppose jeans and a t-shirt, but cool, you know, try and look cool. The temptation is to just go all dressed in black, which is fair enough, but I would always want to be a little bit weird looking. Yeah, so you've already talked about, he's bought himself an amp. It was his birthday and he got his dad to get him an amp. He's got a 400 watt Callan Kruger thing. It's far too much, but no, you never need another bass amp, I suppose, that way. But stuff to take with you, if you've got two basses and you're driving to the gig, take both the basses, even if you're just leaving one of them, the one that's maybe not as good or whatever, just leave it in the back of the car, so that in case something goes wrong, because it's always, it doesn't matter how expensive your stuff is, you can still snap a string, you can still, you know, stand in a lead and snap the jack socket. So if there's any way of taking a spare one, take a spare one. I'm in the Black Sabbath band, I'm using two basses, because one of them's tuned down to, well, I've got a standard tuning one and then one that's tuned down to C sharp. So I do have that option for if I do snap a string or something goes wrong with one of the basses. It's not going to be ideal, but I can tune it down, which will take, you know, like 20 seconds or something. It's not the end of the world. It's just a backup plan. Hopefully never have to use it, but I'd rather have it. I've actually snapped a string on this bass before in Barbliss and Kirky. Luckily the support band were my pals, so I just basically I snapped a string and then I went through looking to see if I had a bass string in my case. If you've got the luxury of having that, have it. If you've got it, if your bass strings weren't that bad when you took them off the last set, keep them in your gig bag. Always handy to have. So that time I did snap a string. I basically went through into the dressing room / disabled toilet and just picked up my pal's bass and came out, which was like up here. Okay, we'll borrow your bass, G. And he was like, yeah. And by the time I plugged it in, we were already playing. But you can't do that with people you don't know. Most people will give you a shot of their bass, so it can be a very personal thing. I'm not really that happy with somebody playing this, because this is like a special one to me. It doesn't matter if one of the cheaper ones, but a lot of people do have a guitar, and especially you've already snapped a string and you're the support band. You don't want to be borrowing, because they're going to be sitting there pure nervous in case you just snapped a string on your own bass. What happens if you snap a string on the bass that you just borrowed and the bass player only has one? You know, worry about these things. And just try and sort it. Leads, take a couple of leads. Especially, even with a bass, I would say, even if you've got multi-effects units and stuff like that, you don't 100% need them. Try and make it so that you can play the set without them. There might be some things that, you know, sound better. Oh, it's nice to have, you know, the delay for this bit, but if you can play it anyway, just going straight into the amp, it's just such a handy thing to be able to have. It also means that you've got, you know, just the ability to just get a decent sound and then play anything. Is very it just takes, stops you worrying about things the same way. Also, I know this sounds really awful, but at gigs, especially more than rehearsals, you might not be able to hear anything. You can't really guarantee your rehearsal room sound. I struggled with this a little bit in Cranking House when I was playing the guitar in the band, because in the rehearsal room it was all controlled, but as soon as you went live, suddenly, if you can't hear everything, you've got to know when it's going to change without being able to hear for what the cues and when the singing's coming in, or when the, you know, the guitar changes. You've got to know when it's going to do it. So basically, being able to run through the songs when you're just sitting in the house on your own, like the whole way through, even if it is, you know, playing the bass and the verses are just, you know, something simple on A, play the whole song, and then just by running through it, we play along. If it's a cover, play along with the record, but do it without the record once you've done it a couple of times, and see if there's any bits that. Sometimes that's when bits stick out and you go, oh, hold on, I've been, because you've been playing along with the record, that bit that does something slightly different, you've just been playing the same thing, which is fine, because it's, you know, it's still in A, but it actually has another bit, so it just divides it out, and then you know what bits to worry about. I tend to have a bit I'm concerned about in just about any of the Sabbath songs. It's just like, go for it, not worry about anything. It's just that one bit that sometimes get wrong, the bit where it comes out the solo and goes back into the verse, you know, that's the bit, that's the only bit I'm really thinking about until it's done, and then it's freewheeling for, or whatever bit of whatever song it is. And I suppose just general gig things. I mean, a lot of this applies to guitars as well as basses. I mean, basically, if you're a guitarist, just take two guitars. Even if you're never going to use the other one, you don't need to use them both. You know, you don't need to have like the Les Paul and the Strat. You can have two Strats. You know what I mean? There's nothing embarrassing about having your good guitar, the one that you're going to play, but having, even if it's, you know, like an Encore or a wee Squire Strat, just there, just in case. Also, it means that if somebody in the other band snaps a string on their guitar, you don't have to give them your good one. You can, you know, give there's a Squire Strat, use that, that's fine, and then you've still got it as a backup. Definitely rather have it than not have it. I'm even running on my pedal board for the bass, which actually I need to do a video using. I've got a Sans amp, just a Behringer pedal basically. It's kind of like a DI box. They're not expensive, I think they're about 30 quid or something, and I've got that partly because I've used a drill case, and really the only pedals I actually need are a wah-wah for the intro to NIB, Sabbath song, a tuner pedal, sort of fuzz, which I've just got on all the time, and that's kind of it. So also in there I've had more room, so I put in this Sans amp thing, which is basically a kind of amp simulator, which means that if the bass amp doesn't work, whether it's mine or the one that's there doesn't work, I can just go straight through the desk, and I've got some controls, you know, just making up for the fact that it might not happen, just so you can finish the gig basically. I mean, that comes down to, you know, if I did snap a string, you can finish off the last couple of songs using 3 strings, or at least muddle my way through it. You want to be good enough for that to be possible, you know, even if it's not ideal. Tuner, make sure you got a tuner. I think most amps and most pedals would have a tuner on it anyway. Not really much else you can say. And wipe your bass down after if you've been sweating on it or anything like that. Don't just stick it in the gig bag and then leave it till next week's rehearsal, because it goes, the strings will just go minging. Been there, done that. You know, do the gig, woo, put the gig away, so get pissed, woo, then just kind of forget about the bass for a couple of days. No, try and make a point of, either immediately after giving it a wipe down, or when you get home, take it out the case and give it a clean up and make sure it did okay. Make it clean before you go in as well. Not polish it up, just make sure it's as clean as you can get it. You know, you're sitting watching telly, spend 10-15 minutes just sitting with a cloth getting it shiny, because shiny guitars play better. They just do. Yeah. And make sure you've got decent strings on if you've got an electric guitar. I suppose on a bass, I'm really bad at not having decent strings on basses. That's why I've only ever snapped 2 bass strings when at gig when playing, and it was both times it was the low E, and that wasn't because it was I was playing it particularly hard. It's because it was the string was ancient, unfortunately. But they're really expensive bass strings, £25 a set. Also, get yourself a switch cleaner so you don't have crackly pots. Although I think this one does. There's a bit there, I need to switch clean that. And actually, right now I'm using a wireless system, but I would not go with just the wireless system. I would definitely make sure I definitely had a lead as well. So whatever I've got, when it comes down to being nothing's working at all you've got is the PA, at least I've got a lead that I can just stick into the desk and make it work somehow. And I suppose the thing, being a band, it's I certainly don't think so anyway. See if you're kind of like that's shit. Even if you don't, I'm not talking about being any good, it's like it's never good to be standing kind of at the back, kind of just gently tickle it. You'd be at the front, even if it's wrong, at least. No. Because the thing is, if you don't have any strut to your playing, then you know it's part of it. It sounds different when if you're playing the disco. So you're playing into it. You can't play like that if you're. Also, it helps the rest of the band. See if when you get to the rocking bit, if you get a bit of the, you know, when it's a bit that's got a bit of that to it, make it look obvious to anyone. You know, even if somebody doesn't know anything about you know, which guitars, which instruments making which sounds, they know which one you are. If you're the bass player and you're giving it, they know what noise it is you're making. Try and be a little bit entertaining about it. Kind of weird looking out at, especially in a pub when it's individual people. I think it might be different when you're playing to a football stadium with 10,000 people in it. When you're playing a pub with 10 or 20 people in it, you kind of try not to make eye contact, or do make eye contact, or kind of just try and look about. You know what I mean? It's fine, it's okay, sometimes you have to look down and see where you are, you know. And if you're going into, it depends which band it is, just even if you're going from the first time, if you can, when you're into the rehearsal studio, because you will be rehearsing, assuming you're not using your amp, make sure your amp can survive a rehearsal and you know how to use it, because if it's anything like the studio when we used Berkeley in town, it's like, you know, you're playing through an 8x10 cabinet. It's a EKS Swedish bass amp, so I mean that's quite a beast, you know, thousands of pounds worth of bass amp you're playing through. So if you're used to just playing through that, and then you turn up with your Marshall 150 watt thing, it doesn't have an 8x10 cabinet, it does sound different, so you kind of want to be able to use, or if you're using somebody else's bass amp, it's like, there is a certain amount of usefulness to just try another amp or take in your one, or just to see if you can deal with something that's not 100% yours. We used to kind of have this problem with, you get bands that have their own rehearsal space, so which is fantastic. You go in, there's no setup, so instead of having a 6 to 9 session where you don't really get going till past, you go in and the drums are still there, the cymbals are there, so basically you just turn up, plug the bass in, and then you're away. It's great. The thing about that is that you tend to get very used to the sound that you've got in that studio, as opposed to you go into a pub, and even though you're all got the same amps and you're kind of sitting in the same place, there's big echoey bits and all the sounds all completely different, so you just be a bit aware that it doesn't necessarily always sound the same. You just got to get used to it rather than freaking out when you go, oh my god, the guitarist, you're trebly, and it's like, or you can't hear him in the noise. It's like, it is difficult. And being a bass player, that kick drum, you might not be playing the right notes, but you should definitely, no excuse for not playing them at the right time. It's always going to be on that or off that, whatever it is. And make sure you eat something as well, a couple hours before you go on. Some, full of Weetabix or something like that. Because, and don't drink either. Well, I have been drinking Bucky for the last couple of gigs, but really, just kind of more for effect, more as part of the stage show, because we're going on as monks, and then after, never before, well, that festival was different, but I'd never turn up drunk ever, or start drinking before you actually go on. It's not worth it. Even having, I decided long ago, like, messing about, there's an awful lot of pissing about when you do gigs, maybe not so much in a pub, but if you're on, because you'll be on with other bands and you've got to wait for them, so you're sitting there waiting, and it's like you can have 1 pint sort of thing, and then you sit and sip it. Just don't bother. I don't think. Just I think you'll have a Coke, and there's an awful lot of pissing about, just waiting to go on. You set up, you do your sound check, all these things. And again, just try and be pleasant. Make a point of trying to talk to any other bands that are there, just so that you're kind of, if something does happen, you've actually talked to the other bass player or the drummer or the singer or just somebody in the other band. So if it does come down to something's happened, we need to borrow this, we can't do this, blah blah blah, at least you've got some contact. It's not just going up to the band and going, hi, don't suppose you've got a lead I could borrow, or I forgot my strap, or all these things, which everyone's forgotten something that one of these gigs, forget the strap, having to play, just like with your bass. I've never actually forgotten a strap, but I have ran one guitar before and I don't like it. I would much rather, even if, as I said, if it's just another guitar in the boot of the car, it's just so you've got another one. Okay, it's a 5-minute delay, but a 5-minute delay is much better than one where you're trying to change strings, or it's just a set thing. Take an intermission. Also practice playing standing up. I've always played standing up. I think I kind of thought that just at I always play the guitar standing up. Very rarely do I sit down playing the guitar. Even before I was doing YouTube videos still. Stands up, it just gets you more comfortable with it. If you only ever play sitting down, when you stand up it's not going to be super easy, and you'll suddenly realise that, oh, hold on, I've suddenly got to hold the neck up, or whatever it is that's going. And it's very rare as well to get told to turn down, asked to turn down if you're a bass player. Bass players are always too quiet. The difference is the bass players are too loud, and the ones that are and they're like that. Look, I mean, fantastic bass playing, but Wild Horses doesn't really want bass like that in it. You know, I do appreciate that it is quite difficult, and you are managing to put, you know, slapped arpeggios into Wild Horses, but the song doesn't want it. You know, and try and play in the gist of the song. Sometimes, and being a bass player, try and enjoy the really simple stuff, because it's quite often the best bits, the best bass bits that are people maybe don't realise, but are, you know, like something like LA Women. Is amazing. It's very difficult to keep that going, but if you can keep it. I mean, okay, it's dead simple, but it's the best bit. The best bit in the song. On any instrument. Maybe that snare drum's good as well. There's some fun in playing that. Drummers do it all the time. They've got a lot of the best. The most fun to hear and the most impressive drum bits are not necessarily difficult things. A lot of the time it is just pure. That's the best bit in the song. It's like for the drummer, pure enjoys that, and it's just it's a straight on the beat hit. Just it's in a strange place, or it's at the climax of the riff or whatever it is. So basically, don't worry about being too loud. Unless the bass player, unless people tell you to turn down. The drummer would like to be able to hear you as well. I don't think you can hear. Drummers can hear very much. In general, I think they're basically partly because they're sitting there battering cymbals, which are very, 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 very loud, right next to their head for all the time. So they've just damaged themselves. And contrary to other belief, drummers are musicians. Some drummers are musicians, you know, so it's like there is a certain thing you get being a bass player and the drummer. It's like I kind of get it. The two have to work together really well. You can't have bass and drums basically have to mesh and just get someone that's, once you start trusting each other a little bit. I mean, I will, if thinking the drummer's getting a wee bit lost, maybe be a bit more, you know what I mean, help them back into where it should be, and vice versa. Or if they mess up or committing, ganging up on the guitarist, if things go a wee bit mental and nobody really knows where they are, I'll just lock in with the drummer so he takes the blame, and then the guitarist will go, right, they're both playing there, so I must be wrong, and that kind of thing. Also be able to end songs as well. Not difficult to do, but worth doing. You know, however the song is meant to end, whether it goes that kind of thing, rather than just, you know, kind of kind of breaking down and stopping, and everyone's kind of like, have they just stopped? Make it pure obvious that you've ended the song, so people can stop what they're talking about, go, you know. There you go, 25 minutes of talking rubbish about your first gig, or any gig, anything else, in the comments.